program. And providing fibre to rural schools and requiring open access to fibre from schools and communities will deliver the capacity to provide faster broadband to the communities they serve. Let's be clear, it's the backhaul or the lack of a link to the main network that is the primary limiting factor right now in the quality of rural broadband. That's the problem. So if you've got a cell site and you've got a cell phone and you're here in Wellington and you're doing broadband on your 3G, right? And you think, this is pretty fast, it's pretty good. And then you go home with the same cell phone to, I don't know, Gisborne, where I was a couple of weeks ago, and it's as slow as a wet week. The reason is the link between Gisborne and Napier. That's the problem. It's not the problem at the cell site in Gisborne. It's the problem between Gisborne and Napier. There just isn't enough capacity to actually bring that up to speed. So that fibre backhaul is the first and primary limiting factor. So getting open access fibre backhaul into rural communities will allow a whole bunch of things to happen. And when I say open access, I mean ensuring that people can then access that. So if you put a fibre point into Manaia, then at Manaia, there's a whole bunch of people can then go into Vodafone can go and hook up to it, the Feds can hook up to it, a whole bunch of people can hook up to it because it is an open access network point. It will facilitate the development of a whole range of solutions to deploy improved rural broadband access networks. Now, there has been some comment about the funding for the Rural Broadband Initiative. We propose that the $300 million will be funded through a combination of direct government funding and revenue from a more transparent and effective industry levy than the current TSO levy. I'm aware that there is some commentary that the 300 is somehow inequitable relative to the amount for the ultra-fast broadband initiative, and less that we could raise through the current local service TSO. I'd like to make 2 points in that regard. Firstly, let's be clear that the two are very, very different. The ultra-fast broadband initiative is on an investment with a return required basis. The rural initiative is on a grants basis. It has to be on a grants basis because you can't make it work financially. You can't make that rollout work financially. So we can achieve the same in rural with $300 million of grant funding as we could achieve with significantly greater investment funding. Secondly, under the local service TSO in its current form, there are no obligations on Telecom to reinvest the compensation of the service, none at all. However, the new levy, which will consolidate and replace the levies, will ensure that up to $250 million of levy funding will be spent on improving rural broadband over the next 6 years. And I would also note that we expect to leverage contributions from the companies that we work with to put this in. So given that the majority of the $300 million will be sourced from a levy, I believe it is reasonable that this funding be directed to shared infrastructure such as backhaul, and that broadband service providers be expected to contribute to the cost of extending upon those backhaul upgrades. So in other words, we'd expect the Vodafones and Telecoms of the world to upgrade their cell towers to deliver cell, and we'd expect the Telecoms of the world to upgrade their cabinets. This is consistent with the approach being taken in urban, where the government's investment and the private party's investment is in the individual users' components of the infrastructure. The period for submissions on the Rural Broadband Initiative is now closed. I'm very pleased with the number of responses. We're all those officials that we were talking about before are all reading it very aggressively as we speak, and the yellow markers out and all that sort of stuff, and summarising it all. We have done an initial consideration of submissions, and there's been some key issues raised. The structure of tender processes, how schools should be grouped and prioritised, the open access requirements, how we ensure that those are truly open access, how we can get maximum benefits to the communities, and how we can promote cooperation between the different providers. This last issue will be key to the success of it, actually. The reality is that the economics of deploying fibre in rural areas on a competitive basis is just not there. So we are going to need all the providers to come together and the interest parties to come together and say, yep, we can use this piece of fibre. And that cooperation could be in the form of co-investment, fibre swaps, anchor tenancies, in-kind contributions, mole ploughing, you name it. There's a range of things that we can do. We're going to release tender documentation for the Rural Broadband Initiative next year. I believe that Federated farmers can play a very important role in this initiative, and I know they're very keen to do so, your Wellington organisation. I think the first thing would be to identify the demand and make sure that demand is available to those that take up the government rollout initiative. I would also suggest working directly with potential bidders for government funding to improve their business cases, either by contributing funding, guaranteeing demand, or offering assistance in terms of digging trenches, providing accesses for poles and ducts, and generally improving the deployment argument. So I would urge all of you, and particularly the national office, because they're the ones we work with on a regular basis, to get engaged and make this thing go as far as it possibly can. I think both rural and urban broadband will be crucially important in New Zealand's future. It's one of those things where you struggle to put a BC on it. And of course, Treasury guys really want to see a BC around this stuff, around all of this investment stuff. But actually, this is a pretty transformational investment. And I think as a country, we can achieve tremendous both urban and rural broadband speeds over the next 5 to 10 years. And we're very focused on making sure that happens as part of that securing a bright future. So I think I'll stop there, and happy to take any questions.